Hello, Michael. Thank you for sending me your booster. First thing I'm going to do is test your brake light switch for function. You use the VOM and the little tone, and I'll check it right now. The reason to do this is because the machine is so noisy you can't hear this when the machine's running. You hear the tone. Now we'll check the pressure when it comes on. Alright, now that I know that this does not go in this position, get rid of the VOM. Alright, I know the brake light switch does not go down here. The plug goes here, and I just use the port right here as a quick and easy way to test the brake light switch. Remember, the brake light switch has tapered 10x1 threads, and so you don't screw it in all the way to bottom out on the brass Y fitting that goes up here on your booster. So you don't screw this brake light switch in all the way, or you have a seal, or use a seal washer here. So just screw it in until it doesn't leak. In fact, this one here, I screw this one in hand tight. And you'll need to screw it down hand tight, and then put a wrench on it, give it a little bit of more turn, just make sure it doesn't leak at that point. Also, on this brass fitting right here, the threads were cross-threaded, and so I cleaned those up. I think it'll be ready to go on it. This is your old vacuum diaphragm that was replaced with the ones that took forever to get from Germany, so that's in here. Your air filter assembly has been rebuilt. Also, when you're hooking up the booster, be sure to use the wrench right here to hold on the flats and keep the slave cylinder from turning while you snug down this fitting right here to hold the snug down this hollow bolt to hold your brass Y fitting in place. Got your check valve, vacuum check valve rebuilt. Let's see what else. Trying to think what else we got. I'm supposed to mention. Oh yeah, this up here is a test port that you can use when you have the booster installed in your car. You just put a vacuum gauge in here, and as you apply the brakes, your vacuum gauge will go to 0, and that's going to be shown on my gauges here. Both vacuum gauges are going to go up and read the vacuum produced by my vacuum pump, and then as the booster is activated, this gauge is going to go to 0, and when it hits 0, the booster is fully activated, and you can do the same thing with a vacuum gauge on your booster. Over here we've got the hydraulic side input is what's produced by my test machine, and these two gauges are tied together. This one goes up, maxes out. This one reads final input pressure. And the output, these two gauges are tied together. This one goes up, maxes out, and this reads final output pressure. Since this is 2-to-1 boost ratio, we're going to expect at least twice what this gauge reads. Be reading over here. Now, to demonstrate that the booster is inert when there is no vacuum going to it, I'm just going to pressurize it, and you'll see the input pressure is the same as the output pressure. 350, 350, 350. People get excited when they are bleeding this thing sometimes, and they want to know if the brakes are not bleeding properly, is the booster's fault, and the booster's not doing anything when there's no vacuum going to it. So it's just a matter of bleeding the booster properly, bleeding the system. Well, but as a matter of fact, this bleed screw right here is not used. Leave it alone. This is the bleed screw you want to use first, and you want to go to your left rear, right rear. No, what was it? The right rear, the left rear, the right front, and then the left front, and then bleed this one again. So let's make sure I did that right. Correct. Right rear, right front, left front. Correct? Yeah. And then you bleed this one first and last. And now we're going to test the booster. All right, now while we're under pressure, make sure we don't have any leaks. If it's going to leak, it's going to leak at this bleed screw right down here. It's going to leak at this jam nut. Leak at the bleed screws. And we don't have any leaks. So we've got a good booster. Speaking of this little bleed hole right here, take a look down there. You can see that bleed hole. That is your first line of defense in terms of knowing when this booster is starting to fail. There's a whole stack of parts in here, and at the very bottom is this bleed hole. So if all these stack of parts that are in here keeping the hydraulic and vacuum apart, if one of them fails, it'll start to weep out of this bleed hole right here, and that's before the brake fluid can get in past the very last seal, which then goes into the vacuum portion. So if you start seeing seepage out of here, it's time to get your booster rebuilt. But I think we've got a good booster for you, and thank you for sending it to me.